Welcome
Thank
back.
you, Senator Avery. Since I'm sure you thought we'd be here till 5:30 or 6, I had plenty of time.
It's okay. It's all right.
I made some notes, made a lot of notes, crossed them out and tried to winnow this down to some things that I expect would come up as questions and would head them on. Great question. So why didn't this bill come up last year if there was concern about the ulterior motives and whatnot? Ask yourself as a legislator this question. And as we know, there were concerns about this process. It's the attempt that going through the appropriations process, with a number of senators being supportive of this because of questions of why are we moving? We tried to put in some checks and some transparency into the process. But ask yourself whether you as a senator would introduce a bill that says, don't trust the governor, don't trust the process. I'm introducing a bill that counteracts all that, because it is within the governor's constitutional authority to do this. And that's why I'm bringing this legislation forward, so that the legislature has to be involved in the process. And after the debate, the straightforward feeling was, let's hope to get as much transparency in this process as we can. And clearly, the transparency still doesn't exist to the extent that I think it needs to be there. Senator Hadley asked the question, why did the city of Grand Island finish closer to last than first? And that's the question. That's the reason behind the bill. Why? Can you imagine back in Grand Island walking around town at any function I go to, any other question being asked like that by people who have volunteered out there, had family members out there, made donations out there, even been high school students who were part of the parade that every year at Veterans Day occurs when the entire high school closes down and they march from the high school out around the veterans grounds and celebrate veterans with the veterans who've been rolled outside to be part of it. Can you imagine them asking any question other than, why did we finish closer to last than first? And I can't answer that question, because the standards to be measured against aren't really there for us to be able to see and measure against. Senator Wallman asked some excellent questions, and the one on culture as an example. The answer to culture of the University of Nebraska Kearney, the Museum of Nebraska Art, the Archway, concerts, all of those things, certainly that's a great definition of culture. And frankly, today, I'm headed over to Kearney April 5th, assuming they'll still have me, to be participating in an event at the Museum of Nebraska Art. It's a celebration. That's great for me. But as Mr. Quant, the supervisor, stated very clearly and nicely, the culture that the veterans at that home are interested in is fishing ponds and the ability to walk over to the Veterans Club. And the kids who do come out on Veterans Day to parade around there, and the high school, junior high schools who send them Valentines. There's that definition of culture also that we don't see anywhere in the scoring. There's the issue of workforce. And Senator Wallman, it isn't just the size of the community. The year before, this body, the legislature, authorized, appropriated dollars to expand the health sciences building at the University of Nebraska Kearney. And it's the right thing to do, and it was a good thing to do, and I spoke in favor of it. But there was a letter from the Kearney Chamber of Commerce that said, we have healthcare workforce problems in this community, and we need this building to help address that. And then a year later, they score better because of on workforce issues. Shouldn't there be some degree of involvement in dialogue about that the legislature in the process I propose would bring forward? Senator Garrett asked the right question. Would people be supportive of this bill if it didn't have the look-back provision in it? And my answer would be, well, I would hope people would in fact say absolutely. And although where your dialogue went is, yeah, but back on the floor of the legislature, more legislators are from Omaha and Lincoln than they are from outstate, is in fact, if you flip that around the other way, recognize the fact that if we're going to continue in this bidding war, or the process of bidding for these services, Grand Island, Kearney, Hastings, Columbus, Norfolk, North Platte, Scottsbluff, none of us can win a bid against Omaha and Lincoln. I mean, the resources that can be brought together by the larger communities to bring in all of these state services into Lincoln and Omaha, even if we came together, the ability for us to tap into resources just doesn't exist. My bill would hopefully provide an opportunity for us to temper that, because my experience down here has been, and I think all you will agree, in these discussions, people from Omaha and Lincoln, senators from Omaha and Lincoln, worry about outstate and worry about that very sort of thing happening. One of the issues that wasn't looked at in the scoring, land. The state owns 600 plus acres out there. And in the roll-up of dollars, that never entered into the discussion. The state didn't, and I challenge you to look for it, assign a value to the land that the community bought to give for veterans home development 127 years ago. It's not in there. I mean, let's think out of the box. What if the state decision had been, let's sell off some of this land? In fact, a big chunk of it we're not going to need even after the expansion. It's right next to a residential area. It's within walking distance of shopping malls. It would be great development property. What if we sold off that land as a state and used those dollars to roll back in to reduce the cost that the taxpayers of Nebraska have to come up with? But that wasn't part of the discussion that was anywhere in there. VFW commander pointed out something that I hope you caught, and that is, in making the decision to move to Bellevue, or the site selection going on, there were a number of people from the Omaha area, including veterans, I understood, from the home, who got involved in making that decision. That didn't happen. That didn't happen with the movement of the Grand Island Veterans Home, or the decision with it. All of those fit into the category of, wouldn't that have happened if there had been a process in place? And by the way, the legislature did get involved in making decisions about the Norfolk home, about the Bellevue home, the Fitzpatrick home. In all cases, they were involved. Finally, I guess I would say much of the testimony made my point, which is the system that we just went through sets us up to butt against each other, community to community. And there has to be a better way. And my bill, I think, is a better way. I think it's an appropriate way. And if it's a good way looking forward into the future, so this doesn't happen again, isn't it still a good process and a good way? And shouldn't we bring it in to the realm of looking back at the decision that was just made that we weren't involved in? That's the question. Thank you for your patience, and you've been very patient, and I'd be happy to answer any final questions.
Thank you, Senator. More questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much. That ends the hearing on LB